Go check on your cucumber plants right now, or picture them in your head as I describe this. Are the leaves developing white patches that look dusted with flour? Is the plant wilting in the afternoon sun even though you soaked the soil yesterday? Did a vine that looked fine 3 days ago suddenly start collapsing? If any of that sounds familiar, don't walk away yet. Struggling is not the same thing as dead, and what you do in the next 2 or 3 days decides which one it becomes. Most rescue videos stop at keep it alive. That's not the goal here. We're going to diagnose exactly what's attacking your plant, treat it properly, and then push whatever fruit is left to ripen bigger and faster than it would on its own. A dying plant that survives is a win, but a dying plant that survives and still hands you a real harvest before frost, that's the actual goal. Why late summer turns against your cucumbers. This always hits in late July and August, never in June, and it isn't bad luck. Your plant has spent the whole season growing new vines while also pouring energy into fruit, and by now it's running on fumes. At the same time, hot days and cool nights create heavy morning dew, which is exactly what fungal spores and the water mold behind downy mildew love. Meanwhile, the insects that were a minor nuisance in June have had 2 months to multiply, and some of them are the ones spreading disease from plant to plant. Exhausted plant, ideal disease conditions, peak pest numbers, all landing in the same few weeks. That's why a plant that looked fine on Monday can look like it's dying by Friday. It's not sudden, it's been building all season. I learned this the hard way my first real summer growing cucumbers, losing almost every plant within 2 weeks because I didn't realize 4 completely different problems can look similar if you're not looking closely. This is the video I wish I'd had back then. Quick favor before we dive in. If this kind of practical gardening content is useful, hit subscribe. It genuinely helps this channel reach more people dealing with the same thing. Drop a comment and tell me where you're watching from too. I like seeing how many climates are dealing with this at once. Now let's diagnose your plant. The 4 things attacking your plant. The treatment is completely different depending on which of these you're dealing with. So slow down and actually match your plant to the description. Bacterial wilt is heartbreaking because the plant looks normal and then falls apart within days. Watch for daytime wilting even when the soil is moist, sometimes perking up overnight, then wilting worse the next afternoon until whole vines collapse. This is a bacterial infection clogging the plant's internal water pipes, and it's carried entirely by striped and spotted cucumber beetles feeding on the plant. Here's the field test. Cut a wilted vine near the base with a clean blade. Press the 2 cut ends together for a few seconds, then slowly pull them apart. Fine, sticky threads stretching between the pieces like thin glass confirm it. I have to be honest, once this shows up there's no spray that reaches inside the stem to fix it. A collapsed vine can't be saved, though the rest of the plant sometimes can, more on that shortly. Cucumber mosaic virus gets missed because people assume mottled yellow leaves are just mildew or stress. Look for a light and dark green blotchy pattern with crinkled curling leaves and a stunted look. The real giveaway is in the fruit, pale gray-white patches mixed with darker raised bumps, sometimes called white pickle. This spreads through aphids and on unwashed tools, and like bacterial wilt, once it shows up there's no cure. The plant needs to come out. Powdery mildew is the one almost everyone eventually deals with, and thankfully the most fixable. Look for circular white or gray patches on the leaves that look like flour was dusted on them. It doesn't even need water on the leaf to spread, just warm days and humid air, so it can show up during a dry stretch. Left alone, it blocks photosynthesis, and the plant slowly starves. Downy mildew gets confused with powdery mildew constantly, but the treatment is different. Look for yellow, angular patches boxed in by the leaf veins, almost like tiles, with a purplish-gray fuzz on the underside in humid conditions. Unlike powdery mildew, this one needs real moisture sitting on the leaf to get started, and it moves faster, stripping a plant of leaves in days. One more thing before we move to treatment. Yellowing alone shows up in nearly all 4 problems, so it's the pattern that actually narrows things down. Fine mottling with crinkled leaves points to the virus. Yellowing starting at the edges and moving inward on a tired-looking plant points to plain exhaustion. Sharp, angular patches point to downy mildew. And all-over dusty yellow on older leaves usually means powdery mildew has been sitting a while. The rescue and pushing for maximum yield. This is where most rescue guides stop, but saving the plant is only half the job. Start with triage. If you confirmed bacterial wilt on one vine, cut it off below the wilted section and remove it, never compost it. If the whole plant is collapsed or you've confirmed the virus, the entire plant needs to come out and be destroyed, since leaving it in place just spreads the problem further. For whatever's left standing, prune the worst diseased leaves from the bottom 6 to 8 inches upward with clean shears, but never remove more than about 1/3 of the plant's total leaves within 2 weeks, or you'll starve the fruit that's still ripening. Here's the yield move almost nobody talks about. About 4 weeks before your area's first frost, cut off the main growing tip of your central vine and start pinching off every new flower and side shoot as they appear. I know that feels backwards, but any fruit setting in that final month won't have time to mature anyway, and it just pulls energy from the fruit that's already sizing up. Stopping new growth forces the plant to pour everything into the cucumbers already on the vine, and they size up noticeably faster because of it. This is probably the single biggest difference between a plant that limps to the finish line and one that actually maximizes your harvest. Now treat according to your diagnosis. For powdery mildew, mix 1 tablespoon of baking soda, 1 teaspoon of mild dish soap, and 1 teaspoon of a light oil into 1 gallon of water, and spray both sides of the leaves in the evening, never in direct sun. A milk spray works too. 1 part milk to 2 or 3 parts water, applied in bright sunlight, reapplied weekly. For downy mildew, skip the baking soda. It's far less effective here. Use a fixed copper fungicide instead, coating both sides of the leaves, applied on a cool, dry morning and reapplied after rain. Switch to base watering only from here forward, since wet foliage is exactly how this one spreads. For the beetles carrying bacterial wilt, target the insect, not the bacteria. A kale and clay spray creates a fine white film that confuses beetles into leaving, applied to both sides of the leaves and reapplied after rain. For an active infestation, an organic pyrethrin spray in the early morning or evening, when bees aren't active, gives a faster knockdown. If your plant is just exhausted, showing that all over faded yellowing with no clear pattern, that's the easiest fix. Water deeply at the base 2 to 3 times a week and lay down 2 to 3 inches of straw mulch to hold moisture and stabilize root temperature. Quick reminder here, if you're finding this useful, tap subscribe so future guides land in front of you when you need them. And let me know in the comments which of these 4 killers matched your plant. Feeding and watering for the rest of the season. Whatever fertilizer routine got your plant through summer needs to change now. Heavy nitrogen pushes soft, vulnerable growth and delays the fruit you already have. Shift toward potassium and calcium instead. Potassium for stronger cell walls and better disease resistance. Calcium to prevent blossom end rot, that sunken dark patch on the bottom of a fruit. A liquid feed higher in potassium and phosphorus, applied every 10 to 14 days, supports exactly what a late-season plant needs. Switch to drip irrigation or a soaker hose at the base if you can, and always water in the morning so any splashed leaves dry out during the day. Evening overhead watering is one of the easiest ways to hand both mildews the moisture window they need. What helps no matter the cause. In late summer it's common to have more than one of these at once, so these steps help across the board. Prune out anything dead or diseased and remove it, never compost it. Open up the center of the plant for airflow. Water deep and only at the base, always morning. Mulch to stabilize moisture and temperature. Feed potassium and calcium instead of nitrogen. And stay ahead of the beetles and aphids, since they're the delivery system for 2 of your 4 killers. Setting up an easier season next. Give your plants real spacing, at least 18 inches to 2 feet apart, and train them up a trellis instead of letting them sprawl. A trellis plant dries faster and disease struggles to establish in that airflow. This one change prevents more problems than any spray. Stick to base watering as a habit, not just a rescue tactic. Consider a light preventive spray a few weeks before disease season typically hits, since it's easier to keep spores from landing than to fight an established infection. Look for disease-resistant varieties for next year's seeds, and clean up every scrap of vine and leaf debris at the end of the season. Then rotate your cucumbers to a new spot away from any squash, melons, or pumpkins. Final thoughts. A struggling cucumber plant in late summer almost never looks as far gone as it actually is. White leaves, yellow patches, wilting vines, it all looks like the end, but it's usually closer to a warning sign. Diagnose it correctly, treat it properly, and you're not just keeping the plant alive, you're setting it up for a real harvest right up until frost. If this helped, tap that like button. It genuinely helps this reach other gardeners dealing with the same thing. Share it with someone whose cucumbers are struggling. And if you haven't already, subscribe and turn on notifications so the next guide reaches you in time. One last time, let me know in the comments where you're watching from and how your cucumbers are holding up. Now go take care of that plant.